Hi, I'm Tony Allen Bernier, and in this video we're going to be doing a bike bag that fastens to the back of your bike seat. The zipper cover that we sew on there I do on my sewing machine, but you can just glue that or do some other methods. If you watch my hummingbird purse video, that'll show you another technique. It's a little bit different looking, but that one's sewn by hand as well. And as always, a big thanks to the Leather Crafters and Saddlers Journal for sponsoring my channel. So I do zipper covers in a few of my videos, and this is just going to be another different way to do it. So if you want to do it like this, you can, or you can check out my hummingbird purse video and do the zipper covers like that. You can skip these all together as well. But this time I'm going to sew them on a sewing machine. And just to simplify things, I'll put some tape on here so that it'll hold that seam nice and straight and have a good fold in there. But before I peel that, I'm going to get the fold made where I want it. And you want to make sure you're folding it back far enough so that when you sew it to your zipper, it will catch the leather and the zipper itself. And we're going to sew one of these to each side, and it'll be a nice little zipper cover. So I just like to get the fold in there pretty good first. So you can peel that backing off and give it a good press. And I usually kind of just get it lined up and don't really press down too hard at first, because you can always peel it up a little and then get it pressed down real good. You're going to sew one of these on at a time, and you'll want to peel that zipper back a little bit so you're not fighting it right on that spot there. And you're basically going to want this flush with that inside teeth part of that zipper. You're going to want to go past where it's going to be sewn to the bag a little bit. Just make sure you have enough. And this really comes in handy too if your zippers are too narrow for what you're going to be sewing these to. You sew these on and you'll get that little bit of extra width to help out. So you have a couple options. When I'm doing my upholstery, I sew pretty close to the zipper because those stitches are going to show regardless. Now since this is going on some veg tan, I could keep that seam back so that you won't see this stitch. They do make zipper feet for your sewing machine too. So you just kind of look underneath, make sure you're hitting both layers. And then once you get close to the zipper, you might have to lift the presser foot up a little bit, but make sure the needle's down in there. Be gentle, you don't want to force anything, and just get it past that point again. And same as before, you want to go on the edge of the side, the teeth on the side that you're sewing on. You want to go to the edge of those teeth still. And there is a way to do this. If you watch that purse video, the hummingbird purse video, there's a way to do this just by hand if you don't have a sewing machine. It's a little bit different, but it still looks real nice. You can see this zipper's quite a bit longer than I need. I'm just going to leave it until I'm ready to go. And at this point, you kind of want to lift this other side up out of the way before you sew this side on, because you want to line it up with the edge of the zipper teeth on this side now. And they will kind of have like an overlap a little bit, but that way they kind of press into each other. Just kind of pull them out of the way a little to make sure you get right on the edge of these other side. Once you get close to that zipper pull again, you're going to want to get it out of the way. So drop the needle down in there and be gentle. Don't try to force this past here. If it's stuck, try to figure out what it's sticking on. Just get it out of the way. Now you can see how that will cover up the zipper. You can choose to do it this way over a sewing machine. You could probably do it this way by hand too if you really wanted to, but my hummingbird purse video shows an alternate way to do this if you're mostly just sewing by hand and you don't use a machine. But what I do is you always want to try to dry fit your stuff first. Just make sure everything's going to work out before you start gluing or taping or doing anything. Now I'm going to put the tape just outside of these holes so I don't have to deal with the gumminess on my needle when I sew through this. And you're just going to want to fold that tape to get around the corners. Once you peel that backing off, this tape's pretty thin and you're not going to notice all those folds. If you're dyeing with the oil dye, it will react with the adhesive on this tape and it'll really gum it up. And it could even ooze out past here. So I suggest make sure you keep that tape back, but ideally don't use this tape if you dyed the back side anyways with an oil dye. And this is, you might not be able to tell, but it's very slightly curved. So I'm going to grab the zipper and kind of get it into that curve to begin with. It's just a very small curve. If you got something dangling off your zipper, you can stuff it in there like that. That'll be good. You might want to give it a little tap with a hammer before you start sewing. So depending on the material you're using and your needles, you may need to punch through these holes before you try to sew it. I'll usually just go a few holes ahead. When you're sewing the zipper across this section, don't yank on the thread too much. You're going to bunch this up and mess with the measurements a little bit. So you want to snug it, but just don't wrench on it. You can always grab these and kind of stretch this apart a little bit too if you feel like your measurements are off. That can compensate for a little bit. The zipper's on there good. Now we'll put these on before we do the boxing. And what I do is, you can see on the narrower side, that point has got a hole right in the center of it. So I'll just grab that, line it up with that one on there, and just start around one way or the other. If you want to throw it in your stitching pony, you can grab this other hole, get it lined up, so all the holes will be lined up, and put it in your stitching pony. Now before you start the gusset, you're going to want to make sure you start the right side. You see you have a wider side and a narrower side. The wider side goes against the flat side of this, so the back of it's wider. And the narrow side will wrap around to this front side. And you can start on either one because the pattern has these marks for each center hole. And as long as you start right on that center hole, you can start on either side. And this will go over the top of the gusset. Start by going through that marked center hole, and then make sure you're getting it through the right one on that. Once you get it going, you can throw it into a stitching pony. And like I've said in a few of my videos, if you want to put a little bit of water right on the edge, just so you can get more compression out of that, you can. This radius is pretty large, so you won't probably need to. But I would at least suggest kind of bending this gusset and get it a little bit more pliable and in the shape you're going to want it in. That just kind of helps the whole process. So we preformed that edge a little bit, but when you're coming to where it narrows, that's where it's going to be bending the other way. So I like to grab it and kind of bend it in just to get it ready, a little pliable. That way it wants to be in that shape already. Makes it a lot easier to sew. In this corner you might as well give that one a little bit right now too. And just go all the way around. And this is about where I start going through the zipper. It gets a little bit tight. Once you get close, you can kind of work that in and get that fold going so it's in there ready to go. Okay, I finished that up and just tied a knot on the inside, put a little dab of glue on it. This will sit right behind your bicycle seat. All we have to do now is make this strap that will go through there, and then it can attach underneath the seat. Helps to kind of form it a little bit, get those folds in there where you want it. Before you do your belts, make sure you give them a spray or something back here, or when you seal them, get a bend going. Otherwise it's going to start to crack right here when you try to force a bend in there. That's going to weaken that spot. And I'll always set my buckle down, make sure I have it the correct way before I start putting it on. Give it another check even. And what I'll do is I'll start on this corner, just work my way all the way around, and then once I get to that corner again, I'll backstitch all the way to the other side. I just put a couple needles through there so it was all lined up before I put it in the clamp. You just need to make sure your buckle's out of the way so you don't start sewing around it. And then I'll just backstitch all the way back to that corner.